Arrow, good morning.
Good morning, and we would like to see a little bit your vibe since you're in the third day of the Global Forum, the second full day. So I will ask my colleagues to prepare the Mentimeter, please, because we want to have a little bit of your vibe to better understand. Please go to the mentimeter.com and insert this code 3036074509. Mentimeter.com. Okay. We are waiting one more second, so I repeat, go to mentimeter.com and insert 36074509. Okay, and then I will ask my colleagues to go to the first slide. Not so fast. Not so fast. Okay, get back a little bit. Wait, 3607. Okay, 3607 4509. Are we done? One. Yes, yes. Great. Okay, great. Let's move to the first slide. So how is your experience so far in Bucharest? We want to know how you feel. Please go check your choices. Okay, then move to the second question, because it's great. Let's move to the second question, because I know already the vibe. You are very enthusiastic. Let's go to the second question. To the second slide. Yes. Alexandra, go to the second question. Alexandra. So, okay. We are waiting, of course. Great. So the most important ideas from yesterday, because I think that was the most important ideas, because how was your time in Bucharest, right? You can give me a very good, amazing, or I'm waiting for this day to be amazing. These are the free choices. Other choices are not acceptable for now. The most important ideas from yesterday about the global forum that we encountered are, of course, democracy, the open minds, having open minds during our debate, enhancing rights and participation, of course, a global community that Democracy International is constructing from some years, multiculturalism, trust, încredere means trust, and ethics. And with this thought in our minds, these are the most preeminent ideas. With these thoughts in our minds, I will give the floor also to Caroline and ask for my colleagues to project the community, the global community code, QR code, for you to scan. Because with these ideas in our mind, Caroline will tell us how to make a resolution and how to take care of our results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francesca. Yeah, so we're going to make you work a little bit more. Sorry, democracy is hard work. And we like voting and drafting long texts. So as the regulars among you will know, we usually have a declaration at the end of the forum. We used to do this with a live session with people drafting and editing things in the session which would happen on Saturday. But we're going to do things a little bit different this year. This year we will use the Consul platform, which is a digital democracy platform that allows people to co-draft texts. So if you scan this code and go to our website, you will also find it on the 2024 globalforum.com website. You will also find this website, this link. You will find a draft declaration which is open for you to edit, to amend, to suggest comments to. And you will also see that for all of the sessions that you attended yesterday and that you will attend today, it's possible for you to leave some remarks and conclusions. So this way we get a really nice package of a really nice overview of the main takeaways of this forum from all of you. Yes, and then I don't want to waste too much of your time this morning, but before I hand the floor back to Francesca in our first keynote, I just really want to thank all of you for being here so numerously, and especially some of the organizations and some of the people who come here year after year, and people who really send big delegations. For example, People Powered, I can't see it right now if anybody's actually in the room, but People Powered who came this year with I think 10 people, and the amazing Greta Rios, who was also helping us really to set up this forum and to think about good teams to discuss this year. The same goes for our long-term partners at Meer Democratie and Anselm Ren, who contributed multiple workshops and who are also permanent partners. We also have the Meer Democraties from Belgium and from Austria, the Omnibus for Direct Democracy, who always join us. Yeah. But I like it as a fact. It's on purpose. Well, let me just get through this list. There's a big delegation from Turkey, from STGM, a big delegation from Moldova through the Soros Foundation. There's the Student Network on the Future of Democracy, the Youth Network, the European Charlemagne Youth Prize Alumni Network, and several universities who send many people here. And if you're not covered by any of those delegations, but you're still here, I really want to thank all of you, especially our returnees who come back year after year. It's really, really nice to see that this Global Forum family can come together every year. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. That was interesting, and I think that we managed to have a good start of the day. I know it's Friday. Yesterday we were here a bit earlier. Now it's already almost 10 a.m. and we will start in a very good way the morning of Friday, because we also need to start every day our morning with a smile on our faces, and we need to laugh, right? Here in Romania we have a very famous publication that makes us laugh in a very smart way, because it gives us the possibility to think and to reflect about how we should take politics and politicians more seriously by looking at their mistakes and looking at the irony with which the decisions impact our lives. So I'm very pleased to introduce you the next speaker. We have Ionuț Adrian Foltea with us, who is a redactor at Times New Roman. Times New Roman is actually one of the most popular daily independent newspaper of voluntary humor. Their activity mimics the most recent news from Romania and also abroad in a funny manner, as I already said. He is the redactor of this publication with 10 years of experience in satire. So I would kindly like to ask Ionuț to come here on the stage and to start the day fresh.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, except for the Austrians in the room. My name is Adrian, and I'm a comedian. I decided to show up and deliver my speech, although political assassinations are back in fashion. Hopefully, I won't get shot today, but if I do, I strongly recommend you start the investigation with the Austrians in the room. You might think that I'm slightly overweight, but I assure you that is fake news. I am simply wearing 2 bulletproof vests. Joking aside, it was indeed shocking to hear that the Prime Minister of a Central European country was gunned down. Shock gave way to intense sadness once I learned it was the Slovak Prime Minister and not the Austrian one. That being said, I shall begin with the most famous quote about democracy by Winston Churchill. He said something like that: "Democracy is the worst form of government except for all others." Well, that is Winston's opinion, a drug addict and a drunk who sold Romania to Stalin at Yalta in 1945. I, on the other hand, have not sold Romania to the Russians yet. So you should trust me to give a better definition to democracy. I say democracy is a solution to a problem that should not have been there in the first place. And why is that? Simply put, because if humans had been nice people with logic, compassion, and common sense, there wouldn't be a need to solve this man-made apocalypse. And so, this is democracy's greatest vulnerability, human nature. Us, the idiots, the conniving bastards, the thieving lunatics, with ideas such as the Romanian proverb, "It is better for his mother to cry than for my mother to cry." A programmer would call these bugs. So, how did mankind try to solve these bugs? Well, they invented two solutions in the attempt to obtain a new, superior type of human being. The solutions were Bolshevism and religion. Bolshevism, as you well know, failed, except in Hungary. Religion, on the other hand, was a great success. Religion worked so well that it gave rise to theocracy, much to the dismay of Democrats. Theocracy is so beloved by humans that even today the head of state in Iran is the Ayatollah. The Americans worship Elon Musk, and the real Romanian president is, of course, the patriarch Daniel, hallowed be his name. I don't know what they taught you in school, but back in the previous millennium, when I attended high school, they told us there are two types of democracy: the direct democracy and indirect democracy. Originally, democracy was direct. The Athenians got together and raised their hands and voted on what mattered. Time passed, dictators came and went and stayed in Hungary, and suddenly the elite had a brilliant idea: indirect democracy. Instead of deciding yourself what happens with the public interest, you elect some other person who will decide for you. Humans were so stupid and lazy that they accepted. Direct democracy was soon forgotten, except in Switzerland, where rich people live. Indirect democracy is everywhere, from developed countries such as Papua New Guinea to primitive backwaters such as Hungary. And so, we got to where we are right now. The main problem with indirect democracy is that what the citizen wants is almost never what the senator will decide. There is a chasm, an abyss, between the one who elect and the elected. What is the result of this? That more and more people say, fuck your democracy, we want something else. This is what the elite calls extremism. People who reject indirect democracy are labeled extremists. Is this a classical form of extremism like fascism, Bolshevism, or veganism? No. In fact, this planetary extremism says one thing: that we are on the brink of a new revolution. As Morpheus told Neo in the movie Matrix, let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know, you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there is something wrong with democracy. You don't know what it is, but it's there like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you here. Do you know what I'm talking about? That you are a slave to indirect democracy. This is a revolutionary time of direct democracy against indirect democracy. People feel that their political power has been stolen from them. They are told that laws are meant to be created by professionals. That is, of course, a lie. What professionals? Our Prime Minister got his high school diploma when he was 30 years old. And before that, he used to sell pretzels in a small town in Moldova called Buzău. The present-day elite, who rules and benefits from political power rooted in indirect democracy, refuses to relinquish these attributes, and so they create fail-safe measures. For instance, Romanian Constitution, Article 74, Paragraph 2 says, citizen legislative initiative is forbidden on fiscal matters, on international matters, on amnesty and pardons. Why citizens are not allowed to propose laws concerning international relations is obvious. Otherwise, if it was up to ordinary citizens, Romania would have invaded Austria on December 8, 2022, after their disgraceful vote on the Schengen accession, a vote they will soon regret, I assure you. Revolution is here, and direct democracy will make a comeback, even though that will mean a new WhatsApp group on your phone. Joking aside, this year Estonia will have an app for voting, a simple app where you can use your political power and vote. Unfortunately, on this app, you will vote for, exactly, some other person who will decide for you instead of you, sometimes against you. Is indirect democracy impossible today? Obviously, not anymore. Should we try it? I say, why not? I say, we should have a vote on that. All those in favor of direct democracy, raise your hands. Thank you. And please, a round of applause for the Austrians in the room.
Yeah, there's some Austrians in the front here, yeah. Okay, I think this can be discussed in a lunch break. So as many of you know, and our overseas guests will have heard us say over and over the past couple of days, Europe will vote in a couple of weeks. And this is important, not just for Europe, but for the rest of the world. I think you all know that Europe has a very long and illustrious history, and much of it is violence. But we really have the European Union to thank for a long period of stability and peace, which unfortunately came to an end with the invasion of Crimea and afterwards the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And so in our next panel, we want to look at the future of Europe. The Union, but also the countries who want to join it, and what that means for the region and for our common futures all over the world. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Angela Gramada, and she will introduce the speakers on this panel. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to invite my colleagues to join me for today's session. This session is a little bit unusual maybe for us, because we have two guests, and I hope they will be able to join us online. One of them is from Ukraine, and I will give you in a short time the floor to Kristina Zeleniuk. And the second one is from Georgia, and you know what is happening right now in Georgia. They have big protests against the foreign agents law, and I hope that Georgi Melashvili will be able to join us as well. Actually, it's an honor for me to moderate this session. Why? Because I'm part of this region. I'm coming from the Republic of Moldova, and I have some roots in Ukraine. And that's why what is happening also in the Republic of Moldova, in Ukraine, in the region, it's very important for me, even if I'm based in Romania. And I had a little bit discussion with Kristina Zeleniuk yesterday, and she told me that it may be an issue with her presentation because they have cut off electricity during this time. And I hope Kristina is online. I hope you will see her. But until then, until we will see her online, I would like to introduce her. Kristina is a journalist, a Ukrainian journalist that I know for a long time already. And we managed to work a lot last year in a residency program that was funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of France. And the residency is based here. And it was organized with RFI Romania and CFI. That means Canal France International. And Kristina came to Bucharest and she stayed with us for a couple of months. That means almost a half a year. And we discussed a lot about the region. We discussed a lot about Georgia. We discussed a lot about Romania and how we can support Ukraine. But also Christina had a mission while being here in Bucharest to talk to the Romanian audience, to the foreign audience, why Ukraine is a European country. And I will invite Christina, because I see her, I will invite Christina to address us and to explain a little bit what can happen if Ukraine is left outside this European integration process. Christina, I'm very happy to see you again. The floor is yours.
Distinguished panel. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So as Angela told yesterday, I hear my echo. Can we fix it somehow? Maybe it will be better now.
Can you hear us, Christina?
Yeah.
Okay, you can start.
Yeah, Angela, you forgot to tell. Oh, there is no echo. Thank you so much. You forgot to tell the audience that last year, together with you, we were in Georgia, in Tbilisi. So we, together with you, we were trying to figure out what is going on in Georgia. And right now we see those protests that are going on about this foreign agents law, but nevertheless, we're talking about Ukraine right now. Thank you so much for giving me the floor the first, because from the beginning of this week, we have blackouts again, because Russia destroyed over 50% of Ukrainian critical infrastructure. That's why it's really hard for us to manage and organize the electricity, both like for manufacturing companies and for ordinary people. About EU integration, I wish I had a plan of our of my speech today, but yesterday we had a very long and detailed conversation with our President Zelensky. So if the audience maybe have some questions also on this about our front line, what is going on there, what is going on inside Ukraine. Of course, I will answer all the questions, but about the EU integration, our diplomats said recently, I won't tell who exactly said this phrase, but it's very fruitful for our discussion. So the phrase is that the Ukraine's EU membership can be on the map of ending the war. So what we see right now is that before the anniversary NATO summit, for example, Ukraine won't get there an invitation, official political invitation to join the alliance somehow in the future. I don't know, in 5 or 10 years. It's a common view both in Ukraine and in the key Western capitals that Ukraine's membership in NATO can be only possible after the end of this war. But when we're talking about the EU membership, it isn't clear yet, because Ukraine fulfilled for now all the requirements made by EU Commission for Ukraine, both for Ukraine and EU to officially open the negotiation process, both for example, Ukraine and Moldova. But we see right now that we should wait because this process won't start before, I guess, the EU parliamentary elections. And the main, I guess, problem is one country for us right now is Hungary. So Hungary is blocking the opening of official negotiations for Ukraine to join the EU. And the second part of my brief introduction is about the condition of the end of this war. So it doesn't clear yet. We don't hear and see from the, for example, EU Council or EU Commission if it is the condition for Ukraine to join the EU, the end of the war. Because what we see in the past, what we have seen in the past, for example, for the Baltic states, it was the condition because, for example, Estonia had to implement and adopt in their parliament a special law that about demilitarization of the border, if I'm not mistaken, between Estonia and Russia. So I just outlined the main challenges for Ukraine, and will pass the word to Angela.
Christina, thank you very much. I hope you still have a couple of minutes because I would like you to hear what is saying to. Okay, great. I hope you still can stay a little bit with us. Okay, great.
Yeah, for the end of the session.
Okay, because I want to pass the floor to your colleague from Georgia, and I will invite Mr. Melashvili online.
I cannot.
We can see you. Good morning. Mr. Melashvili, can you hear us? Great, great. Just a sound check for the audience. And after that, I will invite you to deliver your speech and to tell us a little bit about what is happening right now in the streets of Tbilisi.
Well, good morning, first of all. It is a great pleasure to address one of my favorite towns, Bucharest, and I always find it very nice to have a chance to talk to the audience in Romania. What's going on in Georgia right now is a very complicated and complex issue. We have huge protests going on in Tbilisi for the last almost 2 weeks. The people are protesting against the so-called Russian law, as we call it, transparency of foreign interference. But it has nothing to do with transparency and very little to do about foreign interference. The truth and the main issue that we have right now is the general authoritarian trend, which we're witnessing from the government of Georgia, combined with the change of foreign policy, which is being implemented at a very active level by the ruling Georgian Dream Party. I am often receiving one and the same question from all European audiences. How come that a nation which is 80% plus pro-European, a nation that has European flags at almost all governmental buildings, is somehow being ruled by a party which is aligning itself and the country with the interests of Russia? And that is probably one of the most complicated questions that can be asked, because originally the Georgian Dream Party that was elected in 2012, it was not the party that we're witnessing right now. They have always had the pro-European mask on their face, and they have always been able to trick both the Georgian public, but also our friends and allies in the West, that they were not a pro-Russian party, that they were somehow pragmatic, and that they were trying to move Georgia closer to the EU. So that's how this party, first of all, got into power, and second, how they were able to retain this power for such a long time. This law, the Russian law, as we call it, it became probably the biggest transformative force in Georgian politics for a very long time. It obviously and very clearly demonstrated that the ruling party is not interested in the interests of Georgia, and that the only thing that they care about is how to stay in power unlimitedly. So they do not want to have any limits or constraints on their power. And this law, which is specifically targeting civil society and media ahead of the elections that we have in October, it aims to strangle civil society and to ensure that the ruling party will be able to hold election as they see fit without any interference from the civil society. But besides this local internal developments with this law, we also have a broader context. We're witnessing that similar laws that aim to strangle civil society in different countries are being introduced in Kyrgyzstan, are being introduced in Republika Srpska of Bosnia, and also even the Georgia's occupied territories. The Russian forces are trying to introduce similar laws in the occupied territories of Georgia. So this law and everything that follows it has become a litmus test for a government, whether or not it wants to align itself with the West, with democracy, with the policy which is targeting specifically the development of a country, or if the nation wants to align itself with Russia and to strangle civil society and not to care about the human rights. The protests and the main cause of this protest was exactly this. The Georgian public has realized that Georgian dream government, which we call either Russian dream or Georgian nightmare from now on, is dragging the country back to Russia, is neglecting the sacrifices of generations of Georgians who were fighting Russia for decades. We had Russian invasion in 1993, we had Russian invasion in 2008, we had a civil war in 1991, which was largely supported by Russia. And we're witnessing that right now, the Georgian government is trying to cut off all the progress that Georgia has achieved on the European path, and that they are openly trying to align itself with Kremlin, because this law is not being supported by anybody in the West, and the only persons who are supporting it is Russian propagandist Dugin and also Russian propagandist Solovyov. So when you have a law which is not being supported by anybody in the West, which is not being supported by the vast majority of the Georgian public, and when you have a law which is supported by Dugin and Peskov and the other Russian supporters, you can obviously see the problem here. But besides the law itself, we also have a very big issue with the process that the ruling party has led us to. Mass beatings, attempts to intimidate civil society leaders by midnight calls from foreign numbers, the people who are being beaten in their own houses, the people whose entrances are being damaged with different stickers, calling them traitors, calling them all the bad insults you can imagine. And that's what we're dealing with right now in Georgia, with the government which is trying to utilize all tricks from the Russian playbook to ensure that the election in October will not be held free and fair. But on the other hand, we have the public of Georgia, we have the people who are getting into the streets. With every act of violence from the government, the protest is increasing, the resistance is increasing, and we're witnessing that all major cities in Georgia, Batumi, Kutaisi, the capital Tbilisi, all of those cities are protesting almost non-stop against the Russian law and against the change of Georgia's foreign policy.
Thank you, George. I hope you will stay with us because I have a question for you. But before that, I would like to be back to Christine. Christine, you are still with us? If not, then I will address a question. Oh, Christine is with us. So, I saw that you joined a lot of events during the last year, and I know that you have to explain to the international audience what are the main challenges for Ukraine. But I would like to ask you what kind of support and what kind of understanding we have to provide, support to provide to Ukraine, and what understanding to avoid while talking about the Ukrainian needs, and especially when we are talking about the democracy.
The very important issue right now, both for Ukraine and European countries, is
Christine, we cannot hear you. I will ask my colleagues from technical support. Please continue.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Right now, the very important issue both for Ukraine and the European Union is to underline what is the strategy both for us in this war, how to achieve the end of this war with Ukrainian victory. What we see right now from Ukrainian perspective, both in the US and the key European capital, it's not clear yet. On the third year of the full-scale invasion, Russian, what is their strategy in this war? A couple of weeks ago, we had a close meeting with one of the European diplomats here in Kyiv. And when our experts asked him about exactly this strategy, he said this, it's not our war with Russia. We don't have a war with Russia, and we don't want this war with Russia. It's your war. So you should decide what is your strategy should be in this war, and what is the endless goals in this war you want to see. If you want a negotiation process started, so start this negotiation process. If you see that, for example, you haven't enough mobilization capacity, both weapons, but at the same time, we see that, for example, the Western countries, our partners and allies, don't give us enough weapons to be victorious in this war. So, and it depends also on our European integration process, because it doesn't clear yet what exactly regions Ukrainian government will control by the end of this war, when we will be de facto integrating to the European Union. So right now, the main challenge for us is to get enough weapons to liberate all possible Ukrainian territories up to internationally recognized borders of the 1991. But we don't see this willingness inside our main partners and allies.
Thank you, Christine. Mr. Melashvili, I have a question also for you to address. Yesterday, I had a small discussion with a Georgian expert, and I asked her what kind of support do you need from civil societies of other countries. And I will ask you the same question, because her answer were very, very simple. Just talk about our situation.
Well, that's true. The biggest thing we need right now is as much support as we can get. The Georgian public is predominantly pro-European. For a very long time, we've been hearing appeasement attempts towards the Georgian Dream Party. For a very long time, the bureaucracy language has been used, which was appeasing and actually empowering this ruling party in their way against European values. So what we need right now is for you, for the civil society, to help us to disseminate the message as far as we can get, because we need support. But there are also other countries that need support as well. Ukraine, for example, is fighting a war for a very long time. It has taken them a very long time to be able to defend themselves. Situation in Georgia is also bad, but right now we are fighting off the government which is demonstrating autocratic tendencies. So what we need right now is from the civil society to talk about Georgia, about Ukraine, but also to talk about Russia, because it is Russia which is causing most of this turmoil, whether it is boots on the ground, like it is in Ukraine, or whether it is malign attempts to influence the government and the fabric of the society, like it is happening in Georgia. So we need people in the West to understand very well who is behind this, who is pulling the strings, who is the puppeteer, and also that we are keeping the fight, both in Georgia, but also in Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Melashvili. If you are able both to stay with us, I will ask you to do that because I think we will have some questions from the audience. But now I will move forward to our colleagues from Moldova. And why I'm telling this, because sometimes in Romania and Moldova, we don't speak enough about Georgia and about Ukraine. I mean from a civil society point of view, because we are thinking only about Ukrainian war. We are thinking about Abkhazia and South Ossetia, because they have similar issues with Moldova. And last week I spent it to explain to the Romanian audience what is happening in the region, what is happening in Georgia, and why Georgia is so important for our democracy. Because obvious, it all started 21 years ago in Georgia with the Rose Revolution. I will give the floor to Miss Daniela Vidaicu from Soros Foundation Moldova to give us a perspective different a little bit because you are coming from donor organization and this is important because sometimes we are thinking that the donor organization is not always focused with what is happening within the country, and they are indeed promoting some foreign interests, but this is not the case. And I want you to explain why this is not the case and how Soros Foundation is now supporting democracy in Moldova and actually European integration of the Republic of Moldova.
Thank you, Angela. Hello to everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity to be here today and to have my distinguished colleagues from the Republic of Moldova. I'm very honored and happy to share the same floor with Mihail. We are also partnering, fighting for democracy and promoting European integrations. Can we fix the sound a bit? Dear colleagues, we have an echo. No? Okay, I will try to make myself understandable. So as I started, thank you very much for this great opportunity. We also supported a bunch of civil society organizations to be part of this forum these days, and we are very grateful to have the floor and to speak up about democracy in our regions and about European integration and about our challenges and our opportunities, but also about the support all the countries need, in particular Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova. I'd like to see all the countries together because we have almost the same challenges related to the Russian Federation. We all have the same peculiarities when it comes to occupied territories, and we have the same problems related to this. Just some points, and I will answer to your question, Angela, about donor and civil society support. Coming back to the Georgian situation, we are very much following what is happening in Georgia together with our colleagues from civil society. We are very solidary with what is happening there, and the Soros Foundation and the foundation in Georgia, our sister organization there, is very much worried about what can happen afterwards.
One of your colleagues from your sister organization was blacklisted 1 year ago because he criticized the government because they did not did enough for the European integration of Georgia.
Well, this is speaking about how the civil society should be supported furthermore, and what kind of solidarity we need to show and to support our colleagues from civil society, and how complicated and complex our political frameworks in all our 3 countries are. So about Georgia and about foreign agents law, for example, in Moldova, in the Transnistrian region, you know all that we have this occupied region. We also have this law already in place for the 2nd year, I guess, or the 3rd year. So we already are facing the same situation in the Transnistrian region, and we are facing a worrying situation that we have a shrinking space for civil society in the Transnistrian region. So when it comes to, for example, political rights, it's absolutely very complicated to work with civil society there because there is no space. And people are very much stressed, and our civil society colleagues, they do not have the opportunity in the space and the platforms to work, to speak with people and to encourage people to think more critically, to see and perceive in the correct way the disinformation and propaganda. So it's absolutely complicated. So I do really feel what is happening in Georgia, and we are absolutely solidary with what's happening there. When it comes to Ukraine, we are also following and closely working with our Ukrainian friends and Ukrainian colleagues, and we are trying also to support them when it comes to the European integration process, because you know that civil society is very much involved in different discussions and negotiation phases. So we are supporting also our friends and colleagues from Ukraine to be also actively involved in these platforms and be heard, and to speak up their perspectives about what is European integration, what kind of challenges we have in this phase or in this exercise and process. So back to your question, Angela, about how we are seeing Soros Foundation is perceived both as a donor organization but also a civil society player, because we are quite actively involved in civil society platforms, at least in the Republic of Moldova. We are trying to be very closely involved together with our partners, with independent media or civic activists from all over Moldova and from Gagauzian region or from other regions. We are trying to help both the civil society to be capacitated, to be able to speak with people and with citizens, speaking about direct democracy, to inform correctly the people, to give to the people the right information, the right perspectives, to invite different people and different experts to be more close to the population, to explain what is European integration. Just because Moldova is very much affected by disinformation and propaganda, and it's a very complex and complicated issue and matter in Moldova now related to the upcoming elections, because we will have a presidential elections, we will have a referendum on EU integration. So these important exercises, which are democratic exercises, are very much put in danger because of the disinformation and propaganda. So we are working a lot with civil society, but we are also supporting different processes related to the European integration when it comes to expertise. So we are trying to help with the expertise we have, but also to involve international expertise for the technical work the authorities are doing when it comes to EU integration. And I'm speaking here about harmonization of legal framework, national legal framework, or implementation or monitoring of domestic reforms, so that Moldova would be sustainable in its European integration process. So from our perspective, we have a lot of challenges in Moldova, and this is very much related to the Russia propaganda. I will go back to this point. And it's very much related to the Russian invasion in Ukraine, because Moldova, as we all know, it's a teeny country, a small country, and we are very much dependent on what our neighbors are doing and what is the dynamic in our neighboring countries. So, of course, Moldova is very much affected by the Ukrainian dynamic there and by the Russian invasion, just simply because we are very much connected logistically with Ukraine, and from economic point of view, we are very much relating on Ukraine. We are very much interconnected still with Russian Federation, with our gas and with our other supplies. So it's an ongoing work to transform actually the country and to make sure that this process is irreversible, so that the domestic reforms will do the effect that people are waiting for. This year, we all know, speaking about democracy, it's absolutely important for Europe in general, because we have the elections, but also we have various dynamics around Europe, right? So everything is very interconnected, and Moldova is very much affected by everything. What Moldova is expecting, we really need to support the negotiation to start and to be opened, the European integration negotiations, because this will give us the opportunity to move forward domestic reforms. And why I'm also mentioning so many times domestic reforms, because people are waiting for domestic reforms. And the impact of the domestic reforms will give more power to people to fight for the European integration, because now it's about a fight, to be honest. People want to be in the European integration, but the Russian propaganda is very much fighting and working against this development goal, because the European integration is seen in Moldova as the only sustainable development model for democracy, for economy, for human rights, for independent media, etc. So this is the only model seen in Moldova. So coming to how Europe is impacting Moldova, Moldova is seeing Europe as a model. The development model, the values model. So it's absolutely important so that Europe will keep its democracy, will keep its solidarity towards Ukraine, towards Moldova, towards Georgia, towards Belarus, because all these countries are seeing Europe as a model and as a friend. So we need to keep up the democratic values and to try to save democracy all over the places, so that our countries will be following the same model. Otherwise, the model coming from East is very close to us. So we need really to fight for the values. When it comes to what is the impact on Europe and what is happening in our countries, just simply look what is happening in our countries, because this is a very loudly speaking examples. What is happening with civil society, what is happening with civic space, what is happening with human rights, what is happening with independent media. So this could happen everywhere if we are not fighting for democracy, for freedom, for European values. So this is an exercise to understand for all Europeans that these values are super important, and otherwise they'll be lost. So for us, it's really important from our region, and I'm very pleased to see my colleagues from Ukraine and Georgia to speak all together about the fact that we need to have support, we need to have more support for our domestic reforms and for our civil society and civic space. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. Indeed, we have a lot of guests from outside of Europe and the European countries and European continent. And it may seem for you that in Europe we have stability and prosperity, and that's enough for us, and we don't have to fight anymore. But democracy is fragile, and this is an important thing to highlight during this kind of discussions. And also, I would like to just point one thing. Russia is fighting against the biggest democracy in Eastern Europe, and that means Ukraine. And now Russia has a success in Georgia. And we indeed have to support our colleagues from Georgia to be able to fight for themselves and to find the energy and the resources within the country. In this way, they will be able to advocate for themselves and for the support around the world. And you mentioned, Daniela, a couple of things about how civil society is supporting government, how donor organizations are supporting civil society to support the government in the countries where you are present. But there is a lot of opposition, and fortunately we have Mikhail Sirkeli, and he will tell us a little bit how opposition at regional level can fight back the democracy. And Gagauzia in this regard is one of the best examples. I mean, best examples in a bad way, because some local leaders are somehow influence one of the biggest decisions of the Republic of Moldova. That means foreign policy and European integration. And I know Mikhail Sirkeli from 2015 when I came to Chisinau for a visit, and he delivered a presentation about Gagauzia, and it was amazing for me how little things I know about my country. So Mikhail is a journalist, but at the same time a representative of the civil society, and I'll give you the floor.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, but I think I'm representing myself, actually. So I would not dare to speak of in the name of all civil society from Gagauzia, and I don't know if we have any civil society, actually, except of a few organizations, including my organization. But yes, it's a very interesting case. Gagauz autonomy in the south of Republic of Moldova. Now it's becoming a subject of many news and articles on Western European press. Many journalists are more and more interested in this small, tiny region autonomy in the south of Republic of Moldova. So maybe for those of you who don't know, actually Gagauz autonomy is populated predominantly, or the majority is Gagauz ethnic group, which is a Turkic-speaking minority, but of the Orthodox religion. Actually it was, so the history of that autonomy started the same time when started self-proclaimed Transnistria today, actually. So when Republic of Moldova was becoming independent and in the path of its independence from the Soviet Union, in Republic of Moldova started actually the separatistic movements, one in the east and another one is in the south. One of them is which Gagauzia today. So after Moldova proclaimed its sovereignty, so there was a parade of sovereignties among the former Soviet republics, actually. Yeah, so two enclaves in the Republic of Moldova proclaimed their so-called independence. Gagauzia, 19th of August 1990, and Transnistria 2 weeks later. So, and when Moldova was ready to proclaim its independence, or proclaimed its independence, so this actually Russia activated these two enclaves again. So with Gagauzia was found a solution in 1994, and everybody thought that actually Gagauz community is seeking any instruments to develop its language and culture, to revive and develop its language and culture and revive its historical memory. But after 30 years, we see that actually, unfortunately, this enclaves is used by Russian Federation in order to undermine independence and sovereignty of the Republic of Moldova and undermine the European path of the Republic of Moldova. So all over the sudden, everyone in the Republic of Moldova, at least in Chisinau, understood that actually, so Gagauz autonomy is not working for the purpose it was provided and it was created. But again, yeah, so it was created for the purpose of preserving and developing the Gagauz language, Gagauz culture, and reviving historical memory of the Gagauz community. Why reviving and restoring? Because of the active Russification process which was happening during the Soviet Union. So Gagauz language was almost lost, and the Gagauz culture was almost lost, and there was a strong need to do something in order to revive it. And in 30 years, we ended up in a situation, I mean, in 30 years after the Gagauz autonomy was provided to the Gagauz community in 1994, this year we celebrate the 30th anniversary in December. So we look back and we see that actually no one, not any single meeting was organized in a Gagauz language by the People's Assembly, which is the regional parliament, and not any single meeting in the Gagauz language or plenary session was organized by the executive committee, which is the government of the autonomy. You don't see any names of the streets in the Gagauz language. Streets are still named in an old Soviet way. Actually, old Soviet names are actually we have for the streets. And now we see that actually, in fact, it was the very useful instrument of Russian Federation in order to destabilize country. Why destabilize and why against the European path? For example, give you one example. In 2014, when Republic of Moldova was with Ukraine and other Eastern European countries was about to sign the EU association agreement in Vilnius, so Russia organized and financed a referendum in Gagauz autonomy. The referendum was called about the foreign vector of Republic of Moldova. So there's a question why does such kind of referendum should be organized in one single autonomy?
But Mikhail, you have to mention here to the audience, but it's illegally in the Republic of Moldova to organize a referendum at regional level.
Yes.
On foreign policy issues.
Yes, about the foreign policy issues, exactly. Yeah, thank you very much. But one more thing we need to mention is that it happened exactly the same time or same period when Russia was, let's say, invading or annexing Crimea. Russia started the invasion in the east of Ukraine. Actually, it was 2014. February 2014 was organized the referendum in Gagauzia. And they were talking about organizing so-called Bujakska Respublika or Bujak Republic in the south of Bessarabia, which would include, according to their, let's say, plans, the territory of Republic of Moldova and territory of Ukraine, southern Odessa region, so actually, which would be part of so-called Novorossiya, yeah? So that would unite all the territories of the southeast of Ukraine. Well, thanks to the Ukrainian soldiers, it didn't happen because they stopped Russian aggression in the east back then in 2014. And by the way, thanks to the Ukrainian soldiers in Ukraine, actually, many of the civil society representatives for Republic of Moldova are not in exile, not jailed, or not killed, actually. So, and we have possibility to come here and actually to speak to you directly. So, just to emphasize the importance of the moment, yeah, and the importance of the Ukrainian resistance. So, but coming back to my question, actually, Russia is unfortunately still using the Gagauz autonomy in order to promote its interest. And it's a question about democracy, yeah? So how long should we tolerate, I mean, the democratic society, to tolerate when the democratic instruments, in order to protect the rights of the national minority, the Gagauz autonomy is a national minority, so in order, to tolerate when this instrument is used against the sovereignty, independence, and the European path of the Republic of Moldova. And this is the moment when we should, when you can see Gagauz autonomy, how the democratic institutions are worked and democratic mechanisms are used in order to undermine democracy and in order to squeeze the democratic space. And it's a big challenge right now for the Republic of Moldova because we see that Russia politically controlling this region and using the Gagauz autonomy from inside. So Transnistria is a part which is occupied by Russia in order to retain the Republic of Moldova from the EU integration. And by the way, Gagauzia and Transnistria see its role, as they say, I mean the political leaders in Gagauzia, as they say, we see the Gagauzia and Transnistria as anchors of the Moldovan statality. Meaning that by statality, they mean actually keep Republic of Moldova under the influence of Russian Federation and keep Republic of Moldova from the EU accession, yeah? So, and Russia, unfortunately, is quite active and quite successful in certain ways, including in Gagauzia, in actually fulfilling this goal. And here, when I come to my last point, actually, I think the democracy and people that are actually share democratic values should be more defensive. Yeah, so democracy should be more defensive in order to not let people that actually use democracy in order to undermine democracy to succeed. So, and we, with the support of the international donors, including Soros Foundation, actually are trying to inform correctly people, to present different opinion, and to fight Russian propaganda and disinformation every day.
Thank you, Mikhail. We are enough fortunate to have a couple of minutes to address questions to our speakers. And I have support, one of my former students, actually, who would like to address a question.
Hello. Yes,
Please present yourself, and I would like to ask you to whom you address the question.
Okay, my name is Stefan Bauer from Munich, and I would like to address my question to Ms. Vaidaicho. I completely share the view that this is a fight between democracy and a dictatorship, all what you're describing here. And you're describing also the propaganda which has been implemented in the countries. However, from what I know, there's also a number of certain quantity of success of this propaganda. So people are following. We had demonstrations also in Georgia for the government. The Caucasians, as far as I know, also are supporting a pro-Russian view. What is the key reason, or what are the key points why people are following this propaganda? This would be of my interest.
Thank you. It's a very good question, and thank you for addressing this question. I think we all need to see, probably it will sound a bit romantic, but Moldova is a study case because we really have a big problem with propaganda and disinformation. Why people are following? I have my colleague here, a journalist, and probably he will help me to reply to your question. We are doing a lot of intellectual work to understand why people are following, actually. So one answer would be that people are very close to the former USSR cultural space, which is not exist anymore, but they are somehow attached to it. So the Russian Federation is using very smart this instrument to influence and just to play with the feelings of people, playing with their good memories from USSR and stuff like this. So it's a kind of melancholia, and it's very much played. Probably this is one, a kind of philosophical explanation. The second, Moldova was very much affected by various crises. And this is very much related to the Russian invasion. And our economy was very much affected, our security was very much affected. Our social security was very much affected by the Russian invasion into Ukraine. And of course, the war is affecting very much the spirit of people, the trust of people, the good willing of people, etc. So this is also a feeling of fear that it's very much propagated, actually. And it's very much used. So one narrative is that the European Union will bring the war in Moldova. The European Union, together with NATO, will destroy the country, will destroy somehow the good friendship that we have with our neighbor Russia. We are not neighbor with Russia, but this is the narrative that our good friend and neighbor Russian Federation. So this is another probably explanation. The third explanation is that we still need to work with independent media, and we had a lot of years when we struggled a bit with independent media because we had the Communist Party, we had other parties that somehow diminished somehow the space for independent media, and we are working now to enhance their capacities so that we can produce more media content, local media content produced by local journalists, so that we have really good information. I will stop here probably, and I'll give the floor to Mihail, because probably Mihail will give the perspective from the journalistic side.
Well, thank you very much. Just to add a little bit. Well, from one side, answer can be very simple. From the other side, not really. The simple answer is that why Russia is succeeding, and why Russia is succeeding in Gagauzia in particular, and not only in Gagauzia, but among the Russian-speaking community of Republic of Moldova. And the Russian-speaking community of the Republic of Moldova is much bigger than Gagauzia, yeah, for example. It includes also, by the way, Ukrainians which are living in the north of Republic of Moldova. They consider themselves as Russian speakers. Bulgarians, which are also living in the south of Republic of Moldova. So it's a community about 20-25% maybe, yeah? And why Russia is succeeding, again, coming back to Gagauzia. Well, first of all, because almost 25 or 30 years, the people that are believe in democracy think that everybody believes in democracy. But unfortunately, there are some parts that not really believe in democracy, and they share the idea of Vladimir Putin that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe in the world. And all these years they wanted revenge, maybe, yeah, so, and Russia was supplying them with this kind of sentiment. For example, we talk about Gagauzia, all 30 years after the independence of Republic of Moldova, Gagauz community lived under the influence of Russian propaganda. So there was a Soviet propaganda, there was a collapse of the Soviet Union, and people were still watching Russian television. And they were transforming, and their opinion was transforming together with the transformation of the Russian propaganda. And they were absorbing all these ideas, all these messages, all these narratives that the Russian propaganda was sending. And they were feeding the Gagauz community, and not only Gagauz community, Russian-speaking community, with different kind of content. With the news content, political content, talk shows, entertainment, divertisement, and so on and so forth. And since 2014, we can see how Russia weaponized the divertisement as well, yeah, entertainment. So you see the entertainment talk shows, and you see how the certain narratives in jokes and so on and so forth are promoted there. And people were absorbing everything. And we now understand that the television is a very expensive toy, right? It requires lots of resources. And we see how much Russia is investing in television and propaganda and production of content. Only Russia today, 5 years ago, got 80 milliards of rubles, yeah, which is enormous amount of money. It's only Russia today. So, and on the other side, the Republic of Moldova, unfortunately, these 30 years did not fill this space with its own television, with its own narratives. So actually, the Gagauz community was left at the disposal of Russian Federation and Russian propaganda. Again, so in order to have a successful television, first of all, you need to produce lots of content, and this content should be very much qualitative, which is very expensive, yeah. And we lost these 30 years. Russia already formed the priorities of the people, formed the taste of the people, what kind of content to consume, and now it will be very much difficult. So Ukraine, an example, starting from 2014, they started very decisively to fight with Russian propaganda. They just cut the Russian television and they cut the Russian social media. And we see that it helped to consolidate Ukrainian society in 10 years from 2014 till to 2020. So, and we need to think what will be the solution in the Republic of Moldova. But again, today we still have a situation when in Gagauzia, Russian propaganda is broadcasting, although part of the Russian news shows and political talk shows are prohibited, but they are still broadcasting in Gagauzia. And unfortunately, majority of people are supporting Russian narratives and supporting Russia in this aggression. And we still try to fight with that with a democratic, let's say, democratic attitude and approach. And my question, how long we will tolerate that? And we need to, again, coming to my main idea, we need to be more defensive in order to protect democracy from those who are trying to use democratic institutions and democratic instruments in order to undermine democracy.
Thank you, Mikhail. Thank you, Daniela. We still have some questions, please. Here, Andrei.
Thank you very much. My name is Salomea Romanescu. I am a diplomatic counselor for European affairs. And all my life I study about peace because my name in translation means peace. So I have to address a question to all people here and to think about violence. In both theocracy, dictatorship, and even democracy, we deal with a kind of violence, of aggressivity. Just look in Czech Republic, the attempt against the Prime Minister. And the cause, we have to address the root of the causes of this violence. I mean, the polarization, not polarity of international system, but polarization means many poor people and a small amount of rich people, if we can say like this. And we don't have a middle class, we destroy a middle class. This is a question how we can address by democracy, and especially direct and participatory democracy, this question of violence. Maybe you have to think to India and to Mahatma Gandhi. Ahimsa means the lack of violence, non-violence, in all means. Just to reflect on this, everybody, and try to find the solutions. And maybe I can give you some hints. Here I wrote a book in 2000 about humane security. Yesterday we had a wonderful ex-prime minister from, not prime minister, a minister from Japan, and she addressed this integration of humane security or human security into sustainable development. In this way, I think that we can have a broader definition of peace and democracy. Peace is not only the absence of war, peace also is at the soul level. We lose our health, we lose our prosperity and happiness if we do not have the peace of our soul. It's time to think about our soul, that we are beings with soul, and this is our quantic field, fundamental field, and we are all links at the soul level.
Thank you.
We are a unity. Thank you very much. Just I would like to have some reflection from the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will have a reflection on this, because I'm also somehow thinking a lot about peace and about war and about what is happening in our region at least. I had some discussions several years ago with my Swedish colleagues in Moldova, and we discussed a lot about peace in general before Russia invaded Ukraine. And I got the feeling at that moment that we are quite living in a comfortable zone, not thinking about war. Because
as I mentioned a little bit before.
So I think that we are taking democracy as granted, and this is not already the case, I think, all over the places in the world. And we need to educate ourselves in a new way, because we have artificial intelligence, because we have different very complicated and sophisticated propaganda tools. We have polarization, and we have a lot of conflicts between people. And I think this is the point to be addressed. And this is all linked to peace, and this is all linked to human security, and this is all linked to our world in general. I'm not speaking here about Moldova or Ukraine. It's a complex worldwide situation that we need to sit down all together and think more, because we have a lot of challenges to be addressed. So education would be the key.
Thank you, Daniela. We can have one more question. Andrei, here. Here, yes.
Hi, I'm Sophie Baratio from Switzerland. I have a question to Michael. I don't know if it is a good idea, but I trying to find solution against propaganda. And my assumption is that people don't want war, but propaganda prepare the country to the war. And I would like to have your so the idea is that possible that a network of people sharing testimony from all countries testimonies about their life and what they think could be a good tool against propaganda.
Andrei, can you help me? There is a second question.
We'll take a second question and then answer.
Yes, and this will be the last questions. Thank you.
Michael von der Lohe aus Deutschland, from Germany, from the NGO Omnibus. I have the question, if you think that you're speaking about defending democracy, do you think democracy can be defended by representative democracy?
This was the question for all of us, right?